The rusted dream. The scrapyard floated in deep space like a forgotten graveyard. Old warships, shattered freighters, and broken machines drifted in the void, their metal bodies rusting in the cold darkness. It was a place where no one cared to look, a dumping ground for the dead remains of past battles. But to Darius Kane, it was home. Darius stood on the edge of his station, a small platform attached to the largest wreck in the field. His boots clanked against the metal floor as he stared at the endless junk before him. To most, this was useless debris. To him, it was the foundation of a dream. For years, he had been gathering parts, searching for the right pieces to build something the galaxy had never seen before, a warship made entirely from scrap. Not just any ship, but a monster, a vessel so powerful that it would make even the strongest fleets tremble. It was madness. It was impossible. And yet, he was doing it. The skeleton of a beast. The ship was taking shape inside a massive hollowed-out battleship. The old hull was thick, reinforced from past wars. Darius had welded additional armor onto it, layer after layer, turning the wreck into something far stronger than it had ever been before. Inside, makeshift control panels blinked, engines hummed softly, and hidden compartments held weapons no one would expect a scavenger to have. It was ugly, brutal, a fusion of different ships and different technologies, pieced together by a man who understood machines better than people. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and stepped back, admiring his work. It wasn't finished yet. There was still so much to do. But soon, it would be ready. A whisper in the dark. As Darius worked, a shadow moved across the scrapyard. A ship, silent and sleek, drifted closer, its engines humming at low power. Someone was watching. Inside his small workshop, a red light blinked on his control panel, an intruder alert. Darius's muscles tensed. He turned off his welding torch and stepped away from his work. He had enemies, yes, but who would bother attacking a scrap collector? Unless they knew what he was building. He grabbed his pistol from the table and pressed a button on his wrist device. Outside, small turrets hidden among the wreckage powered up, their barrels locking onto the approaching ship. The radio crackled to life. "You've been busy, Kane." The voice was deep, calm. Too calm. Someone confident, someone who knew they had the upper hand. Darius didn't reply. He moved behind cover, eyes locked on the screen. The ship's markings were blacked out. No identification. No allegiance. That meant one thing. Mercenaries. The attack begins. A sharp bang echoed through the scrapyard, the first warning shot. A second later, his station's outer walls exploded inward, sending metal fragments flying. Darius ducked as sparks rained down, his ears ringing. They weren't here to talk. With a deep breath, he ran toward the emergency controls and slammed his fist on the override button. The ship's defense turrets roared to life, spitting plasma fire at the intruders. Bright blue energy beams lit up the darkness, cutting through the silent void of space. The enemy ship dodged, weaving through the wreckage like a predator stalking its prey. But Darius wasn't unprepared. He had spent years hiding, working in secret, and he had booby-trapped the entire scrapyard. With another press of a button, mines hidden in the wreckage activated. One exploded just as the enemy ship passed by, ripping a hole in its side. The ship wobbled, losing control for a moment. That was his chance. Darius grabbed his communicator. "AI, deploy the drones." A robotic voice answered. "Deploying." From beneath the wreckage, dozens of small combat drones shot forward, swarming the enemy vessel like a pack of wolves. Their rapid-fire cannons shredded the ship's outer plating, sparks and flames bursting from its hull. For the first time, the mercenaries realized their mistake. A dark warning. The enemy ship tried to escape, but Darius wasn't done. He aimed his turret cannons at their engines and fired. A direct hit. The ship lurched, spinning out of control, flames trailing behind it. A second later, it vanished into hyperspace. Gone. Darius exhaled, his grip on the pistol tightening. They would be back, and next time, they wouldn't come alone. He walked to his main console and checked the damage. The outer walls were torn apart, but the ship itself was untouched. Whoever had sent those mercenaries knew what he was building. That meant only one thing. Word had spread. The war begins now. Darius stared at the massive skeleton of his ship. The galaxy would laugh at a man building a war machine out of junk. They would mock him, underestimate him, but soon they would fear him. He turned back to his work. The ship needed more armor, more weapons, more power. The next time enemies came, they wouldn't just find a scavenger. They would find a monster waiting for them. And by the time they realized their mistake, it would be too late. The secret blueprint. Darius Kane stood in the dim glow of his workshop, the flickering lights casting long shadows across the walls. The attack had changed everything. Someone out there knew what he was building, and they wanted it destroyed before it was even finished. The message was clear: stop now or die. But Darius wasn't the kind of man to run. If they feared what he was building, that meant he was on to something big. He wiped the blood from a cut on his forehead and turned back to his workbench. He needed answers. A blueprint from the past. Darius moved to a dusty metal cabinet and pulled out an old data chip. It was something he had recovered years ago, a forgotten relic from the last Galactic War. Most people would have overlooked it, but Darius wasn't most people. He had spent his life digging through history, searching for hidden knowledge, forgotten weapons, and lost technologies. He slotted the chip into his computer. The screen flickered, and then the blueprint appeared. It wasn't just any ship. It was a Terran superweapon. The warship that never was. The Iron Revenant. That was the name listed on the files. A prototype warship designed to be the ultimate weapon. Fast, powerful, unstoppable. But it had never been completed. The war ended before the ship could be built, and the project was erased from the records. The galactic powers buried it, afraid of what it could do. But now, that lost blueprint was in his hands, and if he could finish it, no one would be able to stop him. A dangerous discovery. Darius scanned the data, his eyes widening as he realized the true potential of what he had. The Iron Revenant wasn't just another warship. It was a hybrid monster designed to adapt to any battlefield. Its armor was supposed to be nearly indestructible, reinforced with a material stronger than any known alloy. Its weapons? Experimental energy cannons. Weapons so devastating that even the most advanced fleets would struggle to survive a direct hit. And its power source. Darius's heart pounded. The ship required an antimatter core. The problem. No power, no warship. That was the problem. The ship's design was flawless, but without an antimatter core, it was nothing more than a floating hunk of metal. And antimatter cores weren't just lying around. They were highly restricted, controlled by the strongest factions in the galaxy. Only the most powerful warships and secret military projects had access to them. There was one place he knew that had one. A pirate stronghold. The Deadliest heist. The Red Fang Syndicate. They were a ruthless gang of warlords, controlling one of the most dangerous black market networks in the galaxy. They didn't just steal, they conquered. And deep within their fortress, they had a stolen antimatter core, ripped straight from a destroyed battleship. Darius clenched his fists. He would have to steal it. It was suicide. The Red Fang didn't negotiate, and if they caught him, they wouldn't just kill him. They would make an example of him. But without that core, his ship would never be completed. And after tonight's attack, he knew one thing for sure. He was already a marked man. If they wanted a fight, he would give them one. Assembling the crew, Darius couldn't do this alone. He pulled up a list of names, people he had worked with in the past. Rogues, soldiers, hackers. Rick Avalis, a cyber hacker who could crack through the most secure systems. Jax Riker, a former soldier, now a mercenary with nothing to lose. Milo 7, a rogue AI, smarter than most humans, and twice as dangerous. Each of them had a reason to hate the Red Fang, and if Darius played his cards right, they would be willing to risk everything for one final job. The countdown begins. Darius stared at the blueprint one last time before shutting off the screen. The pieces were coming together. The Iron Revenant was more than just a dream now. It was a threat, and the entire galaxy would soon learn to fear it. But first, he had to survive the most dangerous heist of his life. And time was running out. The stolen core. The plan was simple. Get in, steal the core, get out alive. But in the depths of space, nothing ever goes as planned. Darius Kane stood at the bridge of his stolen freighter, staring at the massive space station ahead. The Black Maw, a floating fortress carved into an asteroid, home to the Red Fang Syndicate, the most ruthless pirates in the sector. Inside that stronghold, locked in a vault buried deep beneath layers of security, was the key to everything, an antimatter core. Without it, the Iron Revenant would never fly. With it, he would have the deadliest ship in the galaxy. But first, he had to survive the most dangerous heist of his life. Welcome to the Black Maw. The freighter drifted toward the station's docking bay, its forged clearance codes barely holding up under the station's scanners. Jack Riker, the ex-soldier, stood beside Darius, arms crossed. "This place stinks of death," he muttered. Darius nodded. The Black Maw wasn't just a pirate base. It was a graveyard for anyone who crossed the Red Fang. Over the comms, Rika Vallis, their cyber hacker, whispered, "Codes are holding. You're clear to dock." The ship settled onto the platform with a metallic thud. The docking clamps locked into place. "All right," Darius said, turning to his team. "No mistakes. We get in, grab the core, and vanish before they know what hit them." Jax checked his rifle. Yeah. Just try not to get us all killed." The airlock hissed open, and they stepped into hell. The Lion's Den. The Black Maw was a labyrinth of rusted metal and dimly lit corridors, filled with the stench of oil, sweat, and old blood. Pirates roamed the halls, some laughing, others sharpening their blades, all of them killers. Darius kept his head down, following the stolen schematics on his wrist device. 3 levels down, Vault 07. They moved fast, avoiding attention. But as they turned a corner, a Red Fang enforcer stepped into their path. He was big, armored, and blocking the way. Jax reacted first. One punch to the throat. The pirate gasped, staggered. Then Jax snapped his neck with a sharp twist. The body hit the floor with a dull thud. "No alarms," Darius whispered. "We're ghosts." They dragged the corpse into a maintenance hatch and kept moving. The vault. They reached Vault 07 without incident. Rekka pulled out her hacking device, her fingers flying over the controls. "I need 90 seconds. Jax kept watch, gripping his rifle. "We don't have 90 seconds. Darius exhaled. His pulse was pounding. This was the moment. If they pulled this off. Click. The vault door slid open. Inside, bathed in a cold blue glow, sat the antimatter core, a cylindrical container suspended in midair, humming with raw energy. Darius stepped inside, his hand shaking slightly as he reached for it. This was power. Power that could change everything. Power that could make the Iron Revenant unstoppable. He grabbed the core and carefully placed it inside the containment case on his back. "We're done," he whispered. "Let's get out of here." Then the alarm screamed. Betrayal. Red lights flashed across the station. Sirens blared. A cold voice echoed through the speakers. "Intruders detected. All units to Vault 07. Darius froze. How? They had been careful. They had covered their tracks. And then he saw Rika, standing by the terminal, her wrist device still connected to the security feed. She wasn't hacking the vault anymore. She was transmitting their location. Jax cursed. "What the hell is this?" Rekka turned to face them, her expression calm. I made a deal. Darius felt his stomach drop. We were never going to escape, Rekka said, stepping back toward the door. The Red Fang knew we were coming. They offered me a way out. Darius clenched his fists. You sold us out. Rekka smirked. Better than dying here. And with that, she vanished into the corridor. Heavy boots pounded toward them. Jax raised his rifle. Time to fight. Darius tightened the straps of the antimatter core to his back. They weren't dying here. Not today. Escape or die. The first wave of Red Fang mercenaries charged in, guns blazing. Jax dove for cover, returning fire with brutal precision. Darius pulled a flash grenade from his belt, tossing it toward the doorway. Blinding white light filled the corridor. They moved. Fast. Bullets ricocheted off the metal walls as they sprinted through the halls, weaving between panicked pirates. Darius could feel the weight of the antimatter core on his back, every step bringing them closer to the exit. Over the comms, Milo 7, their rogue AI, spoke. Your ship is being locked down. I can override, but you need to run. We're running, Darius growled. They'd reached the hangar. Their freighter was swarming with guards. Jax turned to Darius. We need a distraction. Darius reached into his pack and pulled out a detonator. He had placed explosives across the station, just in case. He pressed the button. Fire and ash. The explosion ripped through the black maw. Shockwaves shattered windows. Fires engulfed entire corridors. The guards at the hangar scattered in panic. Darius and Jax didn't stop. They sprinted up the ramp of their freighter as Milo 7 activated the engines. The moment the doors closed, the ship blasted into hyperspace. They had escaped. The price of victory. Darius sat in the cockpit, breathing hard, the antimatter core still strapped to his back. Jax dropped into the co-pilot seat. So, we lost Rekka. Darius didn't answer. Jax shook his head. And now, the Red Fang wants us dead. Darius exhaled. Let them come. He unstrapped the antimatter core and placed it on the table in front of him. The Iron Revenant would live. And when it did, the entire galaxy would fear its name. The rise of the scrap monster. The antimatter core sat in the center of the Iron Revenant's engineering bay, glowing like a captive star. Darius Kane stood before it, exhaustion weighing on him like a lead chain. His body ached from the escape, his mind replaying Rekka's betrayal, the gunfire, the explosions. But none of that mattered now, because they had won. The core was the final piece. With it, the Iron Revenant would awaken, and nothing would stand in its way. Jax Riker leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. You sure this thing isn't gonna blow us all to hell? Darius smirked. Only one way to find out. With a deep breath, he reached for the control panel. His fingers hovered over the ignition switch. This was it. The moment his dream became reality. He pressed the button. The monster awakens. The ship shuddered. Lights flashed to life. Engines roared deep within the hull, their vibrations thrumming through the metal like the first heartbeat of a sleeping giant. The Iron Revenant came alive. On the main display, hundreds of red error messages vanished one by one, replaced by system confirmations. Shields, online. Weapons, online. Stealth mode, fully operational. Darius felt his pulse quicken. Systems check. Milo 7's robotic voice echoed through the bridge. All critical functions operational. Antimatter core stable. Power output, beyond original projections. Jax whistled low. She's a beast. Darius smiled. She's a monster. But before they could celebrate, the proximity alarm screamed through the bridge. Multiple ships inbound. Darius's stomach dropped. They had found him. The hunters arrive. Outside, the void of space filled with the shapes of incoming warships, Red Fang destroyers. They hadn't wasted any time. Rekka had sold them out completely. The comms crackled. A deep, gravelly voice filled the bridge. "Darius Kane, you have something that belongs to us." Darius recognized the voice instantly. Deadliest, the butcher of Orphos, the man who ran the Red Fang Syndicate, a warlord feared across the galaxy. Darius glanced at Jax. "Well, at least we got their attention." Jax loaded his rifle. "What's the plan?" Darius turned to the control panel, eyes locked on the Iron Revenant's weapon systems. "For years, the galaxy laughed at me," he muttered. "Said a ship built from scrap would never be a threat." Outside, the enemy destroyers charged their weapons. Darius smiled. "Let's prove them wrong." The first battle. The Iron Revenant moved like a ghost. The Red Fang ships opened fire, but the Revenant vanished in an instant, its cloaking system activating just in time. Darius gripped the controls, feeling the power of his creation at his fingertips. Time to hit back. Turrets unfolded from hidden compartments. Plasma cannons locked onto their targets. Then, the Revenant struck. A single blast of energy tore through the lead destroyer, splitting it in half. A warship destroyed in seconds. The enemy fleet hesitated. This wasn't the battle they expected. Darius activated the thrusters, weaving through their formation, firing at impossible angles. One by one, the Red Fang ships fell. It wasn't a fight. It was a massacre. A new terror. On the enemy bridge, Deadliest watched in horror. His entire fleet, ships that had dominated the outer sectors for years, were being ripped apart by a vessel built from junk. He gritted his teeth. This wasn't possible. He opened a direct channel to his remaining ships. Fall back now." But it was already too late. Darius locked onto Dreg's flagship. "Time to send a message," he muttered. The Revenant's cannons charge. Dreg's voice cracked with desperation. "Wait." Boom. The flagship exploded in a blinding flash of fire and metal. The Red Fang Syndicate was finished. The legend begins. As the smoke cleared, the Iron Revenant hovered in the wreckage, untouched. Darius exhaled, staring at the destruction. His creation had worked. Jax shook his head in disbelief. "We just took down a warlord." Milo 7's voice came over the comms. "Correction. We just became the most feared ship in the sector." Darius let that sink in. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the scrap collector. He was the one people feared. A smile tugged at his lips. "Let them come," he said. "The Iron Revenant is just getting started." The first battle proved its power. The wreckage of the Red Fang fleet drifted in the darkness of space, burning, broken, and silent. What had once been a powerful syndicate, a name feared across the lawless sectors, was now nothing more than debris. And at the center of it all, untouched, unseen, unstoppable, the Iron Revenant. Darius Kane stood on the bridge of his ship, staring at the tactical display. The battlefield was quiet now. The warlord Deadliest was dead, his fleet obliterated. Jax Riker let out a low whistle, slumping into the co-pilot's chair. Well, that was a slaughter. Milo 7, their rogue AI, spoke over the ship's comms. "Message from the surviving Red Fang ships. They are surrendering, requesting permission to flee." Jax chuckled. "What do you say, Captain? Let him go or turn him into dust." Darius didn't answer immediately. He wasn't just thinking about the battle they had won. He was thinking about what came next. Because news of this fight would spread like wildfire. The Iron Revenant wasn't a secret anymore. And the galaxy was about to take notice. Wanted, dead or alive. Within hours, the battle reports reached the black market networks. A scavenger ship had wiped out an entire warlord fleet. The information spread like an infection, passing through the hands of bounty hunters, mercenaries, and government spies. Some laughed. A ship built from scrap. Impossible. Others, they weren't laughing. A bounty worth billions. Deep within the halls of a Terran military outpost, Admiral Ren Halcor read the report. His expression remained cold, calculating. A warship built from junk just wiped out the Red Fang. If that was true, then it was the most dangerous vessel in the sector. And if there was one thing the Terran Dominion hated, it was a threat they didn't control. Halcor turned to his officers. Issue a bounty. A soldier stiffened. Sir, how much? Halcor's eyes never left the report. Enough to make every bounty hunter, pirate, and warlord in the galaxy hunt this man down. A message echoed through the dark corners of space. Wanted. DARUSKNE and THEIRONEVENANT. Bounty. 500 million credits. Dead or alive. The hunt had begun. Nowhere to run. Darius was still at the Iron Revenant's helm when the first warning came in. Milo 7's voice broke the silence. Incoming distress signal. But it's fake. Jax sat up straight. What do you mean fake? It's a trap. Before Darius could react, the ship's sensors lit up. Dozens of ships dropping out of hyperspace. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, killers, all of them gunning for one prize. The Iron Revenant. Jax muttered a curse. Looks like the galaxy finally noticed us. Darius smirked. Good, let's give them a reason to remember. The Battle of Ghosts Hollow. The first enemy ship fired. A plasma missile streaked toward the Revenant. Darius didn't flinch. The Revenant vanished. 1 second, it was there. The next, it was gone. Stealth mode. Invisible to scanners. Silent as the void. The bounty hunters panicked. Their weapons fired wildly into the darkness, but they were shooting at shadows. Then the Revenant struck. From the blackness, a single blast of energy lanced out, spearing the lead bounty hunter ship. The explosion rippled through space. Darius turned to Jax. Let's show them what real firepower looks like. Jax grinned, with pleasure. The wrath of the Revenant. Cannons unfolded. Missiles locked on. The Revenant moved like a ghost, silent, deadly, untouchable. One by one, the bounty hunters' ships were torn apart. Some tried to run. Some begged for mercy. None survived. Within minutes, the battlefield was silent once more. Darius exhaled, his grip on the controls steady. How many? Milo 7 responded. 17 enemy ships destroyed. 0 damage sustained. Jax let out a low chuckle. I'm starting to like this ship. Darius leaned back, watching the burning wreckage drift into the void. They had won again. But this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Because now, the entire galaxy knew one thing. The Iron Revenant wasn't just a ship. The Galactic hunt begins. The Iron Revenant floated in the void, hidden beneath the swirling gases of a dying nebula. Darius Kane stood on the bridge, silent, calculating. The battle was won, but the war had just begun. Across the galaxy, his name was spreading. The scavenger who built a warship from junk. The rogue captain who wiped out an entire syndicate. The man who now commanded the most feared ship in the sector. And with that reputation came the hunt. Jax Riker leaned back in his seat, boots propped up on the console. So, how screwed are we? Milo 7's voice hummed through the speakers. 17 bounty hunters down. 87 new ones incoming. Darius exhaled. This was the cost of power. But before he could reply, the comms crackled to life. And the voice that spoke next wasn't a bounty hunter. It was Terran military. The offer. A hologram flickered into existence, a man in a dark uniform, his silver rank gleaming in the dim light. His expression was cold, unreadable. Admiral Ren Halcor. Darius Kane, the Admiral said, his voice smooth, practiced. You've made quite a mess. Darius crossed his arms. I prefer to call it cleaning up. Halcor's lips twitched in amusement. The Red Fang were parasites. The galaxy won't miss them. But your ship. He tilted his head. That's a problem. Jax muttered. Here it comes. Halcor continued. The Terran Dominion doesn't like uncontrolled variables. And you, Captain Kane, are the biggest variable we've seen in decades. Darius said nothing. He already knew where this was going. You have two options, Halcor said. One, you bring the Iron Revenant under our command. You keep your ship, you keep your life, and you serve the Dominion. Jack snorted. And option two. Halcor's expression darkened. We erase you. Silence. Darius stared at the hologram, his mind racing. They weren't asking. This was an ultimatum. Serve or die. But before he could answer, the alarm screamed. A ghost from the past. Milo 7's voice cut through the bridge. Multiple warships inbound. Unknown transponders. Wait. A pause. Then, a name appeared on the screen. REKKHA, Deadliest. Darius's breath caught. She was alive. And she wasn't alone. The view screen flared to life, showing a fleet. Not bounty hunters. Not pirates. An armada. Halcor's hologram flickered. Even he looked surprised. That's not my fleet. Darius clenched his fists. Of course, it wasn't. Because Rika hadn't just sold them out to the Red Fang. She had sold their secrets to someone even worse. And now she had returned to finish the job. The betrayer's return. The comms crackled again. And then there she was. Rika Vallis. Her face appeared on screen, that same smirk curling at the edges of her lips. Miss me? She purred. Jax growled. You got a lot of nerve showing your face. Rika ignored him, her gaze locked on Darius. You survived the Red Fang. Impressive. She tilted her head. But tell me, can you survive me? Darius exhaled slowly. He had expected bounty hunters. He hadn't expected her. And definitely not this. Because behind her, waiting in the darkness, was the largest fleet he had ever seen. Darius had built the deadliest ship in the galaxy. But now, he was outnumbered, outgunned. And this time, running wasn't an option. The deadliest choice. Admiral Halcor's voice cut through the tension. Well, Kane, it seems your situation has changed. Darius knew what he was about to say. If you want to live, Halcor continued, you might want to reconsider my offer. Darius's mind raced. The Terran Dominion wanted control. Rika wanted revenge. And he just wanted to survive. Jax leaned toward him. Tell me we're not about to do something stupid. Darius's lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. Depends on your definition of stupid. Because he wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to surrender. He was going to fight. And by the time this battle was over, the entire galaxy would know one thing. The Iron Revenant bows to no one. The final stand. Unleash the beast. The galaxy held its breath. On one side of the battlefield, Rika Vallis's armada stretched across the void. Dozens of warships, sleek and deadly, their weapons humming with power. On the other side, the Iron Revenant, alone, outnumbered, surrounded. Darius Kane stood on the bridge, calm, unshaken. He had spent years building this ship from nothing. It had survived pirates, bounty hunters, and warlords. Now it would survive this. Jax Riker let out a low whistle. So, boss, how exactly do we win this one? Darius's lips curled into a dangerous smile. We remind them why they fear us. The trap is set. Rika's voice echoed over the comms. Darius, I know you're smarter than this. You can't win. Darius leaned forward. You think I'd built the deadliest ship in the galaxy and didn't plan for this? A pause. Then, the Revenant disappeared. One moment, it was there. The next, gone. Cloaking activated. Undetectable. Invisible. Rika's fleet hesitated. Their scanners went wild, searching for a target that no longer existed. Then, chaos. The ghost strikes. The Iron Revenant moved like a shadow. It weaved through the armada, unseen, untouchable. And then it struck. A single plasma beam speared through the first warship. Fire erupted from its hull as it split apart. The enemy fleet panicked. Weapons fired wildly into the void, but they were shooting at ghosts. Jack swooped. They don't know where to aim. Darius kept his focus. Good. Let's keep it that way. Another warship exploded, then another. The Iron Revenant wasn't fighting a battle. It was hunting. And the hunters had become the prey. Rika's gambit. On the enemy flagship, Rika clenched her fists. Darius was playing with them. She had underestimated him once before. She wouldn't do it again. She turned to her crew. Prepare the disruptor pulse. A technician hesitated. But Captain, that will. I don't care, she snapped. Do it. The Revenant is exposed. Back on the Iron Revenant, alarms screamed. Milo 7's robotic voice rang out. Warning. Electromagnetic disruption detected. And then, the Revenant flickered. The cloaking failed. Darius's eyes widened. Damn it, she's forcing us out of hiding. The entire enemy fleet locked onto them. Rika's voice crackled over the comms. Checkmate. The Iron Revenant unleashes hell. Darius's pulse steadied. No, Rika, you just made your last mistake. He slammed a control switch. The Revenant's full power came online. Turrets emerged from hidden compartments. Missile bays unlocked. The antimatter core glowed brighter than ever. The ship had been holding back. Not anymore. Fire everything. The Iron Revenant erupted. Torrents of plasma fire, high-speed railgun rounds, and homing missiles tore through the enemy fleet. The battlefield became a slaughterhouse. Enemy ships detonated in rapid succession. Wreckage and bodies spiraled into the void. The Revenant moved with lethal precision, striking at their engines, their weak points, tearing them apart from the inside out. Jax laughed. Now this is a fight. Darius's gaze locked onto Rika's flagship. Time to finish this. The final duel. Rika's ship was burning, but she wasn't done. Her vessel charged straight at the Revenant, weapons firing at full force. Darius didn't flinch. Instead, he steered straight into the attack. Jax yelled, "Are we really playing chicken with a battleship?" Darius smirked. "No, we're finishing this." The last move. At the last second, Darius pulled a maneuver no warship should be able to do. The Revenant flipped upside down, twisted sideways, and dodged the enemy fire at impossible speeds. Rika's eyes widened. What? And then, the Revenant fired its main cannon. A single, concentrated blast pierced through her flagship's core. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then, the explosion. Rika's ship erupted into flames. And just like that, she was gone. The galaxy will remember. As the last enemy ship crumbled to dust, the battlefield fell quiet. Jax exhaled. Is it over? Darius stared at the wreckage. Then, slowly, he smiled. Yeah, it's over. The Iron Revenant had stood alone against an entire fleet. And won. The galaxy would never forget this battle. And Darius Kane, he was no longer just a scavenger. He was a legend. The Iron Revenant wasn't just the deadliest ship in the stars. It was a warning. A message to the galaxy. Power isn't given. It's taken. And Darius Kane had just taken everything.